many, many days during the summers, my brother and I would bike from our home to the base of Cypress Bowl Provincial Park, and when we got there, we would hike around trails. My mom had almost no idea of where we would be going, but it felt really neat to get there under our own steam rather than being driven, and it felt really neat that our mom gave us the privilege of doing that. We would hike up trails, hike down slippery ravines, into creeks. Sometimes we'd take our dog and he would struggle across boulders and try and keep up with us for once. We would swim in the pools of unknown depth and current. We explored. And we had no idea at the time that we were learning some really important lessons. We were orienting ourselves in life through those experiences and have contributed so far to a lifelong passion of spending time outside and really enjoying all that this incredible province and our world has to offer from a natural perspective. But we also learned the lesson that it's really important for parents to give students or their children the independence to do that. What I'm going to talk about today is this particular quotation here, which is that the most transformational learning is so foundational to the learner's identity, it's barely recognized at the time. It's that foundational to who they are. And I'm going to speak of this formula here, conviction plus action equals leadership, specifically the experiences I've had in my life in terms of convincing me that we needed to rethink education, the action I've taken as a lead program builder of an environmental education program called Outside45, which is on Bowen Island. And it's a shared journey with myself and many educators in West Van, particularly my principal, Jennifer Pardee, who's the principal of Bowen Island Community School. So I'm going to speak about these three things. The inspiration is what we thought the rethink of education should look like, our beliefs in education. That's the conviction part. The implementation of the program, what it actually looks like, that's the action part. And then the insights that we've gained as leaders of this program. So what should, in our opinion, education look like? It all started with actually Jennifer's daughter going through the TREC program, which is a Vancouver School Board program where students have a tremendous amount of outdoor experiences. She formed a really close learning group, people that are friends to this day, and it's affected really the orientation of her daughter's life in terms of what she does for work and who she socializes with and so forth. It was transformational. And it got us thinking, are we providing transformational experiences at Bowen Island at our school? And we thought, what are the purposes of schooling? And you'd think we'd know by now. I've been an educator for 9 years, and we've been educating students for hundreds of years, thousands of years, but education really depends on where it's happening and the time in history that it's happening as well, what challenges our students are going to be facing in their lifetime. We asked, is our school meeting the needs of learners in the communities they're a part of? And we asked, finally, where does our understanding of these experiences come from? So there's so many signposts that are telling us what to think about what education should look like. This frame helped us to kind of organize our thinking a little bit. The ecosphere is the place where learning should happen. Where does it happen? What does it look like? The sociosphere is how students socialize in that space, and the technosphere is what the educators do, the techniques that they employ to help students learn. And we see learning as fitting in this context where there's global influences, provincial influences, district influences, and the specific community influences on what learning is going to look like in that specific place. And speaking of Beijing, I had the experience of traveling there several years ago, and more so than any experience in my life did I realize the major impact we're having on the planet. The pollution invaded our eyes, it got seeped into our lungs, and I couldn't wait to get out of the city to get to the Great Wall of China, and unfortunately the smog persisted there. And it was more so than any moment of my life where I realized that the world's in crisis and a major shift in attitude and effort is needed to combat that crisis. So the biggest push in Outside45 is that we've got too much to lose, and sustainability education needs to be a foundational part of education. I believe in this. What is taught and not taught teaches students about what we consider important, what our culture considers important. And if we don't teach sustainability education in schools in a significant way, our students will have no idea of how big the shift that needs to happen is in fact. Not only what we're teaching, but where we're teaching is really important as well. And I consider where we teach students not just a pedagogical decision, but a reflection of our culture. Education systems, particularly public education in BC, is a major cultural reflection. And if we choose to teach students in a classroom, the intended impact of that is that students get to be warm and dry and be able to see their work because it's well lit. The side effect, though, is that students start to see their learning as disengaged from the community they're a part of and from the natural systems that they're a part of because they're learning inside all the time. And there's no such thing, I've been told many times, as side effects, only effects. So while we intend students to be nice, warm, and comfortable, we're removing them in some sense from where we want their learning to be connected to. So that's the global context, and that was the biggest push in terms of thinking about Outside 45. The provincial context is that things are changing in BC. I mean, this conference is wonderful, and there's conferences in BC all about how to change. The Premier's Technology Council shared a paradigm shift that Jennifer and I really appreciated. The student becoming more active in their learning, with engaging learning experiences. The parent becoming less a supporter, or continue actually to support, but instead of just fundraising and coming to PAC meetings long after students have left, to be more engaged in their learning on a daily basis. And from the teacher as lecturer to teacher as guide, and as an ecological educator, I love the modesty in this statement, that the teacher can kind of step aside and recognize that humans don't have all the answers, that learning environments and other sources can provide really inspirational experiences in learning for our students. We were relieved that the BC Ed plan was giving greater flexibility as to where and when learning happens. So tons of changes happening in BC. The district context of what learning should look like, well, West Van's got really high expectations. We consider ourselves to be the premier place for learning. The vision of the Board of Education says we aspire to be the finest education system in the country for our children, for educators, for our community and our world. And I love that last part because it has such high expectations, but there's the recognition there that there must be a moral purpose to education. It's not just for individual benefit, but for some greater good. Our superintendent tells us to change. We're doing well, but he writes his blog posts, and almost all of them seem to fit into the category of change. He writes about that more than any other topic. So the message we're getting from our district is schools are doing great, keep academic excellence, but change the way you get there. And we understand that some of that needs to be quantifiable, some of that academic excellence needs to be identifiable, but I think what we just heard from Dean and what we're going to hear throughout the day is that there are other goals that are kind of long realized, and I referred to this in my kind of orienting experiences growing up, that some take a long time to be clarified. In fact, the biggest goals in Outside 45 aren't going to be realized this year when students graduate from the program. Hopefully they're realized throughout their lives. The community of Bowen Island is obviously a defined community. Because it's an island. And a lot of people go there thinking and believing in that statement that it takes a village to raise a child, and they want to become more engaged in their child's learning. So we believe community is important, and we want parents to become more engaged. So those are the key beliefs, and they're pointing us in certain directions as to how we've actually implemented Outside 45. So I'm going to speak now about the action we've taken, what it actually looks like. And like many schools in BC and around the world, we're moving towards an inquiry-based approach that's focused on the big ideas and enduring understandings. Big ideas in Outside 45 relate to key ecological principles. First of all, students learn about relationships, and they learn about their identity and how their identity is tied to the relationships they have in their community and to the natural world they rely upon and contribute to. The difference in Outside 45, I think, is where that learning sometimes takes place, in that we intend to anchor learning to experiences and places. Because big ideas and enduring understandings, yes, they may tell a story of how a student's learning can unfold, but that story is still cerebral. It's still an intellectual exercise, and if it can be rooted to a specific place, if we can think of which is more tangible and easily recallable, suddenly thinking of that place opens the door to the experiences those students had in that place. This is a picture of going down to a beaver dam. We're blessed that it's only 15 minutes from our school. And when there, students saw how beavers had changed this valley by flooding a creek that had raised the water level, killed some trees and made it more easy for insects to invade, and then the birds had come and were feeding on the insects. Suddenly that concept of relationships is made really evident, and it can be tied to that specific place. And now thinking of 15 minutes from that school, on this bridge here, they can open the door to the learning that they've experienced. And Outside 45, we want to develop and apply, students to develop and apply critical thinking skills. But we don't want to brainwash students into thinking and adopting pro-environmental behaviors. I think if students have critical thinking skills, they're going to actually kind of move in that direction themselves. We provide students with direct experiences, opportunity to reflect upon those experiences, and then the conceptualization is tying those experiences to the broad concepts that are foundational to the program. What I mentioned before, big ideas such as understanding the relationships in their community and the natural world they're a part of. The negotiation piece is looking for different perspectives, recognizing that we often dichotomize our world where we have evil oil companies and good environmentalists, and the true answer is somewhere in between. And it was fascinating for me to read a project of a student who asked the question, are oil companies evil? And I think the suggestion in that question is that we look at vilifying some individuals and making others heroes, and the answer is somewhere in between. That's a complex realization for a grade 7 student. We believe that the world ahead is going to be challenging, just like our world now is challenging in terms of those individuals who want to overcome challenges, who want to face the problems of today and make a better world. And students need a strong sense of grit for that to happen. We go hiking long distances, we get blisters, we go camping in cold and wet conditions. Students toughen up a little bit. And I think it's a lot harder, or a lot easier rather, to see this really basic relationship where you've got effort and you've got outcome and there's intricately connected. It's hard in an intellectual task like a math problem to see the effort you put in has some sort of benefit to result over here. But when you have physical experiences where you see hiking up to a great vantage and you can then relate that to some of the more intellectual tasks, the notion of grit and this formula becomes a lot clearer. We want students to understand who they are, both as learners and community members. So we take students out often. We've connected with dozens of community members throughout the year. And we often, whenever possible, try to go to them. Because we recognized anytime someone or something is removed from its environment, something is lost. And someone who works at a hatchery, someone who is learning or working about salmon can deliver that message far more effectively when they're actually in their place of work and how they contribute to their community. And that's only made possible, connecting with the community, if you have really strong parent engagement. I've partially moved to Bowen Island and I'm gaining a lot more connections with the community members there. But parents are so important in terms of ensuring that we can create a large network of people who can support the program. So any parent and any student who joins Outside45 becomes a program builder. They have an obligation to make the program better than it is now. And we have a parent who is on the communications committee. This person's job is to collate all the photos from our trips and make them available to students and parents, which is incredible. We have a fundraising committee, a networking committee to find people who can, in the community who can support learning. We engage parents through our Twitter feed. Almost all parents have joined Twitter. Most people were first-time users of Twitter, and I think Outside45 is the only account they're following. I think they're following. It's not sure, and it's mostly one-way communication. I must admit, it's mostly me posting photos of learning as it's happening when we go to neat places and do interesting things. Weekly emails, and we have incredible parent engagement. There's only 24 students in Outside45, yet for most of our field trips, we get 6 parents out. They take time off work, they take time away from their extra commitments, and they participate. We have monthly program builders meetings where parents come. We sometimes have 12 parents, and they come and share what's going well in Outside45 and what could be improved. And most importantly, they share some of the assets we have on the island to make it a better program. The last goal of the program is to develop an ethic of care for students, to develop an ethic of care for themselves, for their fellow humans in the more than human world. And this is an ambitious, bold goal. It's not an easy one, and it would be simplistic to say that by going to beautiful places we can accomplish this goal. But I don't undervalue the importance of going to magical places where a sense of reverence for the gifts that we have has. And simply hiking up to Rubble Creek and going there when you're carrying your garbage back out is such a contrary experience to being in a school when you throw out every classroom has a garbage can. And it always is empty at the end of the day, and students have no idea how this happens. So the contrast is striking, and it's important. We've gained some insights into implementing change. We've been super fortunate with our conditions. I still believe in this formula, conviction and action equals leadership, but way more important than that is that shared conviction, shared action equals change. We've engaged the community in implementing something new, and we've created something really special that is going to be expanding next year, which we're excited about. And the way we've done that is by trying to understand as best we can the needs of our community. We've engaged the community in a significant way. We've heard them, we've listened to them, and we've engaged them in the process. Major learning for me is that risk-taking receives support. Outside 45 has been a tremendous amount of work. It's been an ambitious project, and the way that parents have stepped up and said, we want to support you in any way we can, has been an incredible gift. And it's not for my benefit, it's because their kids are enrolled in the program, and the kids are their most precious thing. So we've been extraordinarily fortunate to receive tremendous support. Some helpful conditions for change that we've benefited from. We've received trust from our school board, from our Board of Education, from our school board office, from our parent community. And I think we've done that because we've consulted with the key players. We've consulted with the stakeholders. We work hard and we deliver on our key priorities, and we've been clear about what those priorities are, what the program is about and what the program is not about. And lastly, we operate Outside 45 in a culture of improvement. It is not as good as it's going to be next year. It was better in October than it was in September. We're constantly trying to make it a better program. I'm going to finish with the mantra of Outside 45, which is the statement, we belong here. And when you read the newspaper and you hear about the acidification of oceans and you hear about glaciers receding, climate change, it's easy to think that the world might be better off without us. But so many traditions, so many cultures have proved to us that we can live more sustainably. And it's the goal of Outside 45 for students to be able to say, we belong here with conviction. Thank you.